It was up in the air for a bit, David.
All right. I decided to join live from the Brown School. So
The Lighthouse is looking good.
David, I have to tell you, I brought the kids over so Cecilia could see her classroom without kids because of her situation. And like, first of all the kids absolutely adored it. But to get Cecilia to be able to see a classroom and say, like, this is Mike, like, it was just really exciting for all of us. So it was, the kids loved it.
Yeah, I think people have been going over and using the playground since the fence has been down, and people are really excited. So yeah, it's going to be a fun day on Wednesday in Marblehead for sure.
Well, on that positive note, I will call us to order at 7:01. And I will ask, does anybody have any commendations? I know, let's see, I'm not exactly sure which day it is. I think it maybe was over the weekend, but it was National Custodians Day. So especially given the Brown School and all of the moving and last minute details and everything, Megan and I were able to get a tour this morning, and the custodians were all over the place just doing everything that they could, and Todd was there. And so I'd give a shout out and a huge commendation to our custodial staff for everything that they're doing, you know, before school, and then they go over to their buildings during school, and then they're over at the new building after school, and just, you know, not only are they still under a lot of pressure with COVID, but with the new building coming online, just, you know, really above and beyond. So thank you to them.
No, I think that's a really great point, Sarah. You know, they've been spot on. Todd Bloodgood and his team, I don't know, starting about 6 weeks ago, getting some training on the building. And then when things started to move in with furniture and equipment, you know, we've bought out help from the vendor to set things up, but, you know, they're right there in the background, taking out cardboard boxes, understanding the systems, being trained. Tuesday, they were, you know, Todd was there with the chief of police and the police department on the security system. And yeah, I think that's a good commendation. And as well, you know, Steve Kwychek, the one-man show, I'm sure there's some other people behind the curtain, but, you know, Steve's been there. I don't know, John, you know, probably for the last 3 weeks, testing every classroom to classroom, making sure the wireless keyboards are set up, the touch screens. And so, yeah, a lot of accommodations there. But for me, just a continued recognition for all the teachers and staff. I mean, here we are, you know, 6 weeks into the academic year, and, you know, everybody's been dealing with challenges that have been put forward and in school.
Oh, yes, actually, what's the address?
That's great to hear. And, you know, thanks to all the staff that are working through all of this, and, you know, making the most of the situation to try and get us back to where we want to be. So.
Thanks, David. Sarah, did I see your hand up?
So I have two. The first one is obviously all the nurses have been going above and beyond, but particularly the village nurses. They've been there, I think, this week every night till at least 6:30, 7 o'clock at night, going, you know, above and beyond to do what they can to help us get ahead of the situation over there. So I just want to commend both of them for that. And then all the teachers that are packing up and moving and setting up classrooms, for the second time this year. They're all amazing. And I think of the group, especially of kindergarten and first grade teachers from the Gary, who now have packed up their classroom and moved it. I've lost track of the number of times in the last 4 or 5 years, but they still have a spring in their step and are excited to welcome students and, are getting those kids. I have a couple kids in those grades excited for it. So the fact that they're doing all of our staff is going above and beyond, but doing it with such joy and grace. I just wanted to commend them for that.
Thanks, Sarah. I'll definitely second that village one, because I think they're obviously very busy with all the COVID pieces. And then, on top of it, they still have all the students coming in. And, at this point in the year, there's plenty of little belly aches and anxiety pieces popping up. And so they're just, I think they're doing a phenomenal job. Anybody else? All right, then that will bring us to Yasin for our student representative update. Welcome, Yasin. Thanks for joining us.
Yeah, thank you. The MHS open house on 9/30 went well, and a big thank you to the National Honor Society for helping out as well. MHS also held SAT testing on October 2nd. Yesterday, all grades had class pictures and also a bus evacuation drill. Those went well. And the school is working to try and determine vaccination rates and implement a COVID testing program. So hopefully we will see what happens with that. And as far as clubs go, Grizzlies and Serendipity, the a cappella groups, they held auditions. Students were inducted into the Tri-M Music Honor Society on October 5th. Team Harmony had its first meeting yesterday. They're a club committed to ending bias and discrimination at Marblehead High School. The National Green School Society is collecting clothes for a clothing swap until October 21st, and they also had an induction today. The service learning class is also collecting clothing for the Magic Hat thrift shop as well. The first math meet was today, and today Best Buddies also had an event with the girls soccer team. And for student council, the junior class plans to sell class clothing soon as well. For sports, girls volleyball held a raffle and a silent auction fundraiser. Girls soccer is 8-2-1 after the win today over Winthrop, so congratulations to them. The boys cross country team beat Peabody to clinch the NEC North title. And the golf team beat Salem yesterday and qualified for the state tournament, so good luck to those teams. As for the senior class, their fall formal will be in the gym due to COVID restrictions. However, for their prom, they will be at the brand new Fenway event space, and they will be able to watch the baseball game at prom, which is pretty cool.
That is so cool. I can't remember where I first heard that recently, but it's so exciting for those kids because, that's the class that has missed their sophomore semi and then their junior prom. And it's really exciting that they're able to do something like that. So thank you, Yasin. We always appreciate the update. There's lots of good things going on at the high school. And it makes me wonder, do students still hate the bus evacuation drill as much as we did when I was in high school?
I don't think anyone hates it. It's just, it's a little silly to get down and slide off through the bus. So.
Did you? Megan said she liked it. I always hated it. Thank you, Yasin. We'll see you in a couple of weeks. Yeah, David?
Could I? So Yasin, a year removed from, thinking about where you were last October, how is it different this year?
For me, it's definitely weird. I'm a junior and I still haven't had a full year of high school. So that's pretty weird. But I think I'm adjusting. It's definitely the workload has definitely increased, I think, since we're now in person full time. but I think everyone else is adapting as well, and it's getting better slowly. So that's good.
It's good to hear. But managing all of the classroom exchanges and lunchtime breaks and all those different things that go on in the school, it seems to be manageable.
Yeah, the schedules, when they change, they're pretty clear, so we can usually always tell what our schedule is. So we haven't had a ton of those issues. It's been good.
Yeah. Great. Well, hopefully this year and next year will be normal years for you. So
Yeah, I hope so.
Yes, I think we're all hopeful of that. Thank you, Yasin.
Yeah, thank you so much.
All right, that leads us on to public comment. If anyone would like to make a public comment, use the raise hand feature and I will call on you. If you do, I would request that you keep it to 3 minutes and remember to state your name and address for the record. I've got one hand up so far. Scott Solberg, go ahead.
Hi there, Scott Solberg, 1 Ramsey Road. I know that, and thank you, Yasin, for your great comments. It's still not normal, right? I mean, we've gone through this major trauma as a community, as a society, as a world. I think we're still trying to grapple with that. And I just want to give a shout out. We were talking about the great things going on to Mr. Stephen Donahue, who's one of our heroes right now at the high school, really helping our child make the transition in. But I also want to just call our attention as parents that it's not easy for our educators. And I think they're still needing, at the end of the year, we give them support. And I know we'd send presents out at the end of the year. I think we need to do it now. I think we need to start giving out the positives, just saying how hard they're looking great. That high school open house was amazing and a lot of great faces forward, but they're struggling. It's emotionally challenging. So let's try it as parents. I just want to give a shout out to say, let's try to do something to acknowledge just how great they're doing, and it's hard, and keep it going forward. So that's all I want to say. Thank you. I didn't use 3 minutes, so I hope that's okay.
Yeah, thanks, Scott. I really appreciate that comment. It's something, that I know a few of us have brought up to John too, like how can we support our staff as much as possible through this as well. So thanks for your comments.
That was part of our conversation in the SAC meeting today as well. So yeah, thank you, Scott. All right, I don't have any other hands up, so I will move us along to our consent action and agenda items, which we have 2 sets of minutes this evening that were in our Dropbox. So can I get a motion to approve the minutes from 4/1/2021 and 4/8/2021?
So moved.
Megan moved.
Second.
Emily second. Does anyone have any corrections, additions, anything? Sarah?
The first set needed some clarification. It said miss called to order. Like we just need to fill, like it looks like they were kind of in draft form and then not completed. So if we can just complete them. And then also the headings are missing where it says like the date of the meeting, the Zoom information, who's present, like all of that information. So if we can just tighten up that before, they become final and
Yeah,
take
absolutely. Yep.
that.
And I know I talked with Lisa at like 5:30 today. And I know she had been working on some of those smaller details within the meeting. So that depending on when you looked at them, they may be already taken care of with that.
Okay. And then under the meeting for 4/8, if there was a bullet that says a conversation regarding enrollment numbers and staffing took place. If we can just kind of detail what that conversation was a little bit more, I think that was a really important conversation at a really important meeting. So I want to make sure that the minutes give a clear view of that for anybody looking back. And that's it.
Okay, great. I wrote those down and Lisa's definitely on the call. So thank you. Okay, anything else? All right, I will roll call vote. Sarah Gold, yes. David Harris?
making sure I'm not, yes.
Megan Taylor?
Yes.
Sarah Fox?
Yes.
And Emily Barron?
Yes.
All right, those pass 5-0 with the corrections noted. All right, John, that brings us to our superintendent report. We have first up our Planning for Success, a technology update from Stephen Kwiatek. Stephen, welcome.
Thank you.
I will let you take it away. Need to share your screen at all? I know you had.
I think I sent some slides earlier.
Yeah, do you have them up? Do you want to share them?
Sure.
All right. You should be all set to do that.
So I'll just provide a little commentary while he's pulling that up. I'm hoping to have Planning for Success as a regular update on school committee agendas so that you're aware of the work that's being done on those action items for this year. And I decided to start with Stephen because he's been doing so much, as David noted, opening Brown School, in addition to a lot of upgrades in technology and phone service. And I thought that you guys would find that insightful.
Thank you, Dr. Bucky. So in planning for success for our technology, this year we're focusing in on two main goals. One is developing a comprehensive long-term technology plan. And the second would be to create added technology supports for our staff and students using our technology integration specialist who we hired this year, Mindy. In getting ready for our technology plan, I'm going to be looking to create a district-wide technology committee. Committee is going to be focused with members from our technology department, principals, hopefully some teachers and community members as well. Looking to review our current technology, all of our computer labs, all of our devices, equipment, network infrastructure, software, and then start making up multi-year goals for replacement cycles, upgrade cycles, doing a review of new technologies that might be out there that we want to add into our classrooms. And our second one, working with our integration specialists, we want to create new opportunities with PD lessons, whether it's one-on-one with our integration specialist or kind of breakout sessions where they can maybe do a luncheon group meeting where they might want to learn something new about whether it's Zoom or Google or any of our other software technologies that we're running. Or, you know, in our new school, we have all the new smart boards. It might be a great chance for all of those staff members to have a chance to learn more about all the technology in their classrooms as well. Also provide an online learning environment for our staff. So we're creating a new website for our staff that will house all of our software solutions, websites, and technology supports for our staff as well. So that's in progress and looking forward to making that go live pretty soon. And then as well, we have a software package where our staff will be able to schedule in time to meet with integration specialists and work with them and co-teach and for those. So that's our kind of focus besides other upgrades doing through the summer and through this last year. So
fantastic. Thanks, Stephen. Does anybody have any questions on that? Sarah?
So is there going to be a component that looks at STEAM curriculum and how we can integrate that and improve that in our various grade levels? I know you had some really wonderful ideas. I got to work with you in our Planning for Success initial group there, and you had some wonderful ideas, like really at the tip of your tongue, ready to go, that pertain to that. So I would love for that to be a piece of it as well.
Yeah, so definitely a part of the committee will look at all aspects, not just hardware, software, but programmatically, you know, different things we want to focus on, add on. You know, one of our areas of need, I think, is in our elementary schools to really get more technology for those students to prepare them so that when they do move up through the school, that we really have a full K-12 program. And, that's something that's going to take a couple of years for us really to work on and build and to get to a point where we can focus and get us to where we need to be.
That's wonderful. And then that group looked like a great group. Can I put a plug in to put a firm request to have a school committee member be part of that, where this really is a strategic plan, although none of us like to use that word. This is what this is. It's a technology strategic plan. And so I think it's really important to have on any strategic planning model, a school committee representative.
Obviously, anyone is welcome to join. But really the focus for this technology committee is to focus in on our building like our 5-year tech plan, which will definitely have pieces of the planning for success as well. So.
Stephen, my question to kind of piggyback on that was, do you think that it would be valuable to have a high school student on that? I know this is the 3rd year I've sat on the high school SAC. And so I know, I think we've made some huge improvements over there, but pre when you were on board and really digging into this stuff, I know the Wi-Fi and everything was commonly discussed with the students that are in that meeting. So I'm just wondering if it would make sense to you to do that as well, to add that group.
I think a student representative would be wonderful to have on the committee as well.
Great. Any other questions for Stephen?
I don't have any questions. I just, obviously this is a big initiative for us, but I think the integration with really helping the staff get up to speed with the new technology, I'm really happy to see that that's part of, such a major part of what you're focusing on. So hopefully, we can really make sure that they're comfortable with the tools that we're making available. So thank you.
And then part of this, when you come up with this 5-year plan, I'm hoping that you'll have funding drivers with that as well for each initiative that you are, or step of it, any funding requirements.
Definitely. Part of the planning for success, besides these 2 focuses that we're really focusing on, especially this year, is that we're currently in the process of building a multi-year budget, which will cover, future needs as well.
Perfect. Thank you, Stephen.
Thank you.
And if I could, and thought it might have been part of the agenda, but Dr. Bucky and Steve, I think we received an email about a grant that you applied for related to technology.
Yes, we received the ECF funding for about $346,000. So we're going to get a lot of new devices out of that, Chromebooks, iPads, and a lot of hotspots as well for students who really need it.
Yeah. Well, I think you're being a little modest. A lot of Chromebooks and a lot of iPads. I think it's order of magnitude around 600. And I think we're talking about somewhere in order of magnitude around 300 MiFis. And, doing a little research on that grant, it was an FCC grant, I think, that was put out, during COVID, a $7 billion grant to promote connectivity. And, in my brief discussions with you the other day at the Brown School, you were talking about how this will help last year when we were able to get new Chromebooks for teachers, but now we can update Chromebooks for students, iPads, and also have connectivity for students who might not have connectivity at home.
Yeah. So the MiFis, it's up to 200 devices that we've been granted for currently. And you're correct, 600 Chromebooks, 300 iPads. So really takes a huge burden off the district right now to be able to supply us with all these new devices for our students.
Understatement, a true testament. I mean, you came here in January and you've just jumped in and full force. So that's amazing. And it goes without saying. I mean, that will go a long way. I don't know what the what the useful life is at that point. But as we know, technology continues to expand. So as soon as you have something new, there's an iPhone 13 that's out. But, hopefully those Chromebooks and things that you're getting for the district, that goes a long way. So, thank you for the efforts that you've done there, and, applying for, what's out there for the district.
Thank you. I also just wanted to say, all the work that I've done as well at the Brown School, my staff have been there working their hearts out, staying late at night, working to make sure not just the Brown School is ready, but all the rest of our buildings are as well ready, and helping with the transition for staff members who've been, displaced over the last couple of years to start moving into their new homes. So they've really been working hard too.
Stephen, and before or around our next meeting, can you give us just a rough update on where we are with becoming one-to-one at the elementary level? I know a lot of our new math curriculum is device-based, and that's been a little bit of a hurdle. And so I was just wondering how close we are and what this new grant will do to get us kind of to that finish line.
I'll run the numbers again, but we're very close, if not already there. So
there certainly were a lot of carts at the new school today as we walked past them. It's great to see. Emily, did you have your hand raised?
Yeah, it's just something silly, but I did get an email from a teacher at the Brown School today that she did from her classroom. So she was very excited. And another thing that Stephen did was our new website. I don't know if we've talked about it at our meetings yet, but my daughter did see it and was like, wow, that is really beautiful. So anyway, she said, so thanks again. That's another thing that we've done over this summer. And so thanks for all your hard work and getting us where we need to be.
thank you.
Yeah, Stephen, you and your staff really have just the pace at which you guys have worked over the past 9 months is astounding. So I'm quite sure that the things identified in planning for success will be able to be achieved as you kind of check boxes. So thanks for presenting to us this evening.
Thank you.
I have one other thing that I'll just throw out there. So Steve, in your spare time, maybe you can figure out how we can get Verizon connectivity at the high school and the Brown School. So I'm in the parking lot of the Brown School the other day, and there's no cell service at the Brown School, and we've all known for years there's no Verizon or very, very limited cell service at the high school. So maybe we can get Verizon in there to boost their signals and those. I mean,
we might need to, for safety's sake, invest in an internal amplifier, because there's only maybe 2 or 3 actual spots in the Brown School where any cell service actually might work. But I'm already working and looking into that. So
no, I'm sure you are. It's just remarkable. You think about, 7 years ago, you used to not have connectivity halfway home from work, and now you get it everywhere. You get to Marblehead, and all of a sudden, in the parking lot of the Brown School and the high school, there's no connectivity. I don't know anywhere else in Marblehead. There's something about the buildings or whatever, but throw that out there. Thanks.
We're working on it.
Yeah.
Thank you, Stephen. John, district updates.
Sure, I put in the shared drive just 7 things that I wanted to update the committee on, and I think it was Emily at our last meeting that asked for evaluation purposes if I could do the references. So if you're looking at those things and wondering why it says 2A1, those are aligned to the superintendent evaluation rubric. So the first thing is the dashboard. We have made some enhancements to the dashboard. People were wanting to know more weekly information, and so we have added the 2 columns for weekly information. Every day it's updated, so it's not just updated once a week. So Deanna goes in, and anytime she learns of a positive case at a school, she marks that on the dashboard. And then all the COVID protocols and health attestation and all of that information is still there. Megan had a really great idea, as people have been asking for information related to positive COVID cases of if there is a way to have an automated message that goes out to families when their child is out sick, reminding them of the protocols and requesting that they get a PCR test if they have had COVID symptoms before returning to school. So Stephen, again, gets a shout out that he says that if we get him the language, he can automate that through Aspen. So if a student has been out sick, the family will get the automated message that links them to the COVID protocols, and it requests that they get a PCR test prior to sending their student back to school. The Brown School opening is the third thing. First, I want to echo what Sarah Fox said. Our teachers have been working so hard, and that is such an exceptional facility that in its greatness is also overwhelming, because the light switch has 5 different options and you have a smart board in the classroom and there are temperature gauges, and our teachers want to be perfect from day one. And I just want to say publicly, I am so grateful for all the hard work that they're doing, and it's okay if it's not perfect on day one. And they're staying late at night. We're going to have the building open Saturday and Sunday. They're going to have the full professional development day after Indigenous Peoples Day to set up their classrooms and get some organizational protocols in place so that they are feeling more comfortable. But I know the anxiety is high, and I just need them to hear from the superintendent that it's going to be okay. And we're so appreciative of all the hard work that they're putting in. So day one is October 13th. On Sunday that week, we will have the ribbon cutting ceremony, and we have a organizational meeting for that in the morning. And then the following week will be open house. And I think the boo-through is not boo-through anymore. It's the Monster Mash this year. So lots of great stuff going on at the Brown School. Megan?
What time is that ribbon cutting?
Is 2 to 4.
2 to 4. Okay, thank you.
Then you had requested that we revive, I guess is the word, the safety committee. So I have scheduled our initial safety committee meeting for October 13th at 11:30. And so far, we have confirmed that Chief King, Chief Gilliland, Robert White from the ambulance service, Brian Odom, Andy Murphy, Michelle Carlson, Matt Fox, Sarah Fox is the school committee rep. And in that initial meeting, it will be to be determined, should there be other people on that guest list, on that committee that aren't there, and kind of mapping out the year ahead. But I know in talking to the fire chief, he's very glad that this committee is coming back online, as is Chief King with Marblehead Police Department.
Actually, John, if I may,
Please.
just because this is the first time safety committee has met in several years. Can we change? I hadn't seen this date until your memo came out yesterday.
Okay.
And I am not available. Is there any way you can change it to the following week? And maybe we can talk about this offline, but whereas we haven't met in so long, I'd like to be there.
Absolutely. Let's talk offline on that.
Okay.
It's just coordinating all of those schedules is like herding cats, but if there's a way that we can bump that ahead a week,
Okay.
well, let's have that conversation.
Thank you. Thank you.
The Wellness Committee, likewise, I scheduled an initial meeting for that group. Sarah, I think you are the Wellness Committee rep. And currently it's Deanna McMahon, Amy Amico, assistant principal at Village, Lindsay Page, an assistant principal at the high school. There will be a Board of Health representative, and again, to be determined, should our food service director be on that, should the facilities director be on that, and then kind of mapping out priorities for the year. ARPA funds, I continue to work with Michelle and leadership at looking at some possibilities for the $6 million that the town of Marblehead is getting in those funds. Jason, I know the town administrator, hears from me regularly on this, and they have a process in place where they're going to do some community outreach, either in the way of a survey or forums, I reached out to my colleagues to ask what their communities are doing and how the schools are being looped in that. And so Michelle and I are looking at prioritizing things and putting some dollar figures to that, and then providing those to Jason for moving forward.
Is that something maybe for the next meeting we could walk through just to see what that priority list is?
Absolutely.
Okay, thank you.
Yep. And then really good news, our Director of Human Resources started this week, and she is exceptional. Certainly coming into a very vague job description. We're happy that we're partnering with the town on this, but her background in HR, I was sharing with some of you. I got an email this week from a staff member who had a leave question, and I responded that I'm copying Lisa and our new HR director, and she came down the hall and she said, do people really send the superintendent of schools things like that? And I said, yes. And she's like, why? I said, because there wasn't a U. And so she's excited about the work, and she's already added some true value. So I want to welcome Cassie Bruner to the Marblehead Public Schools as our director of HR. And that's the superintendent's update.
What are you going to do with all your free time, John?
Be out in the schools, David. I'm going to take that assistant principal's office at the Brown School as soon as I can move in.
Kudos. That's really exciting news. That's a great hire, and I think it's the first step. It's as we talked about, it's shared with the town too, right? So that position will support the town. That's great.
I did want to say in my weekly update tomorrow, I'm going to talk about, we had Dr. Carrington last year who came and did such a nice workshop for parents during COVID and attending to the needs, and the Marblehead Counseling Center is going to start a series of workshops, and so we'll be promoting that it's going to be on October 19th at 6:30. And so as has been mentioned a couple times tonight, what Jody Carrington said last year was, if the big people aren't okay, the little people won't be either. And so as we attend to our students' needs, we want to make sure we're attending to families and staff needs as well. And that'll be in the district update tomorrow. Great,
thanks, John. And I'll just highlight that the presentation on the 19th is focused on families and supporting families and children. So it's one that is quite relevant to our crowd. All right, any questions or follow-ups for John on any of these things?
I had a question about the opening, but I don't know if it's better to go under David's update, but I just wanted to, I know common practice in this is to make sure we're inviting any of past school committees members, both current and past, to this, and I want to make sure we're doing that as well, because this is something that's been a multi-year thing that many other people have been involved in, and we should make sure we're inviting everyone.
I'm making a note of that, Sarah. I did reach out to Bill McAuliffe to make sure that he was included, but I will make sure that at our meeting tomorrow we get a list of school committee members past that should be extended this invitation.
All right.
I think
go ahead,
going through a ribbon cutting event at my day job, that is always the challenge, Sarah, for sure, to make sure people are not left out. But in addition, I have a small thing I'll share here. I'm sure that what gets finalized will be blasted out through the parents of over 3,000 students in the district, that hopefully if somebody doesn't get an individual invite, that some way, shape or form, they'll hear about it. But you're right, for past school committee members that aren't on those email lists, we are endeavoring, I know, even with Cindy, the last couple of days to gather. I don't have this person's email address. So yeah, people are really trying to do their best to catch up with people's various email addresses. So if, I'll just throw it out there to people. If you have emails to the committee or people that are on this, if you have various emails of people and, you want to forward them to us, it's always helpful to make sure we have them.
Yeah, I think you're the only committee member that was on the original committee that saw the feasibility study getting passed and everything. It was you and Susie Pratt, Meredith Tedford, Jen Schaffner, Kate Lipsitz. So I think that committee that embraced this and took this on, it would be really important to include.
And don't forget Kathy Leonardson. Kathy was actually the chair of the feasibility study that got approved at town meeting when I first joined committee. So you're right.
Yeah, definitely.
Kathy Leonardson. So you're right. There's a lot of people up there, and we'll try and we want to get that word out for sure.
Wonderful. All right. That brings us to the Superintendent 2021-2022 school year goals. We got these at our last meeting, and the one comment was to maybe beef up a little bit of budget. John, do you want to, I know you said that you did that. Do you want to just, kind of publicly say what you put in and where?
I did. Sarah had asked that I make reference to the budget, and I didn't create a separate budget goal, but under my second goal number 2, I added language specific to the budget and making it needs-based, and working with the budget subcommittee and the school committee to make sure that the FY23 budget provides for the needs and supports to deliver an exemplary educational curriculum.
Great, thanks for doing that. I will ask for a motion to accept the superintendent goals for the 2021-2022 school year.
So moved.
Megan moved.
Second.
David second. All right, any final comments before I call for a roll call?
I wasn't here obviously for the conversation in the last meeting, but I've followed up with John on my comments. So, I'm good for now. Thank you.
Great. All right. Sarah Gold, yes. David Harris.
Yes.
Megan Taylor.
Yes.
Sarah Fox.
Yes, and just I meant to grab you for discussion quick. Would you consider, even although not changing the goal, entering the language to reflect that budget will be part of it in the write-up?
I don't understand, sorry.
So he has like a narrative under each goal. And so although he wouldn't have like a budget goal per se, he can put in the narrative that additional piece about incorporating budget as a factor in those items.
It's in there, isn't it?
It wasn't updated from the 926.
I think she's talking in the 4 goal or the 3 goals at the top.
Yes.
That she wants language regarding budget in the top section of the 4 goals. Certainly I can add budget to number 2 because it's listed as one of the action items.
Okay.
Thank you. It's such an important piece that I just would like to see it as part of that. Thank you, John.
Yep.
And Emily Barron.
Yes.
Okay. So that passes 5-0. Wonderful. All right, Michelle, that leads us to the finance part of our meeting. So tonight we have on a couple of things that you had discussed with the budget subcommittee a couple weeks ago. So you are here to first present us with the FY21 closeout.
So the FY21 closeout, actually, could I share the screen for a moment?
There you go.
Awesome, thank you. Can you see that?
Mm-hmm.
Okay, excellent. So the FY21 closeout, I originally presented this a couple weeks ago. We were in preliminary figures at that point. It's pretty much firmed up. We are in the days of our final days of our audit right now for the town. So things are looking at as they were a few weeks ago. So basically for FY21, we had an operating budget of $40,521,000. We spent a total of $40,461,420. And at that time, we expected to turn back an amount of $59,580. And that's looking to be true at this point. We were able to prepay some costs, such as $150,000 to special education tuitions. Basically, that's an insurance policy and a prepayment of this year's expenses that we know we will incur. In addition, we tried to restore some of the balances in the revolving funds, especially the circuit breaker fund, which is only used for special education costs. And ideally, we receive roughly between 1.2 and 1.4 million in circuit breaker funds each year. To be responsible, we really should be holding on to about half of that each year. So we did have a reliance of spending all of those funds every single year. So at this point, we were able to bump up that revolving fund to a balance of $251,000 to start this year. So while we're not where we want to be for an end game, but we certainly are making progress because we are higher than we were last year. In addition, we were able to basically not tap into any of the kindergarten preschool tuition account. We were able to keep that stable and absorb all those costs last year. Initially, we were thinking of just absorbing the shortfall because we did have a preschool tuition piece last year, but we were able to absorb all the costs from last year, which is able to build up that fund as well. And then lastly, our school lunch fund, we were also able to increase that a little bit. We did have some federal revenues. So a lot of our costs we put towards the general fund. In addition, we were able to order most of the math curriculum costs. We initially ordered all that in June. So that did come out of this FY21 budget. And there were some small pieces to that math curriculum that did land in FY22 because of just we needed some more textbooks and whatnot, not textbooks, but workbooks. And then we were also able to secure some additional IT equipment that we were not planning on. So between COVID last year and the COVID funding that we had last year, that we spent a lot of money on technology, and the FY21 available funds at the end of the year, we were really able to make some great headway in our IT needs. So the bottom of this page just shows you where our revolving fund balances are at this point. And so the total of our revolving funds, obviously they all have different purposes or restrictions on what we can spend them on, but basically we're just over $1 million in our total revolving funds, with a good piece of that going towards special education and kindergarten. Are there any questions on this part of the presentation?
Megan? Okay, Sarah, go ahead.
Just noting how none of these are surprises considering what was going on for us last year, but the building rent revolving and the gate revolving, the athletic gate revolving, are really our only ones that have decreased, the building by about 25%, but the athletic gate went down significantly. Obviously we weren't, having spectators come. Are we going to be able to cover our expenses this year? Do we feel that we'll get enough in receipts from this year to cover what we need to this year? Or do you see that being an issue?
Yeah, no, I do expect we will receive what we want. Typically, we do not have much reliance on the athletic revolving. We use it in the year following. So at this point, we only have, just over $4,000 in there. So we would not plan on using that for any of our costs for this year, or for, maybe for next year if we had a substantial balance, but because it's so small, I wouldn't plan on using that for FY23.
And then, sorry about that. With the kindergarten revolving, one of our goals is to get rid of kindergarten tuition. what is the state guidelines on, do we have to use that up this year on kindergarten? Do we have to use that up during a time period when we're taking tuition, or can we carry that over and still use that to pay kindergarten fee, like salaries?
Yep, no, absolutely. We can carry that over as long as we are using it for those associated costs. We can use, we could plan on, even if we, further discussion coming up in a few minutes, will be possibly eliminating a full day kindergarten tuition fee. And if we do that, we can use this for the next 3 years, or, the next number of years we want to, but as long as we're spending that on kindergarten or preschool. So there's no particular time limit there.
Perfect. Thank you.
You're welcome.
Megan? Nope, you're muted.
Thanks, Michelle. I mean, I think there's a lot of good information here. I think, being able to prepay special education of 150,000 and also start to build up that circuit breaker is a really important, thing for us to be able to doing, just given, the variability in the special education costs. So thank you for highlighting that. I think one of the things, and I asked this in the budget subcommittee meeting too, is what I'm trying to understand is what was our total remainder from fiscal year 21. And so, obviously I can add the 59 and the 150, but it sounds like there are other things too that, we used some of our fiscal year 21 operating budget to support other things. So I would really like to see what that total number is at some point.
Yeah, no, definitely. I will be putting that together when we do our final closeout. I'll give you guys an update. It will include the absolute or the final cost of the math curriculum, as well as any IT needs. In addition to this prepayment, really, it was those three main expenditures that we were able to prepay.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
And when you do that, Michelle, can you just make note of, we had a gigantic influx of one-time funding last year. And I just want to make note of where we use that funding for any reoccurring needs, i.e. salary that was okay to put under that funding, but we used it for, I just don't want us to have an unrealistic picture that, or anybody to have an unrealistic picture that there is a surplus of funding in our budget at the end of any given year. I mean, we had millions extra come in last year that really helped in a lot of ways. So I just, maybe it is that we just have a surplus budget. My sense is we don't.
We absolutely do not.
I know we don't. And we don't. But this number story for someone who isn't digging into the numbers might look at it and say, "Oh, the schools have extra money." Yes. And I want to make sure we're telling a very clear story. The schools had extra money last year because they had an influx of several $1 million in grant money. That was one time.
We absolutely, we did have the influx of the grant money, but we also had a very unique year in dealing with the pandemic. We had remote schooling for a good portion of our time, which reduced some of our transportation costs. It reduced a lot of our substitute costs, and that wasn't necessarily due to remote learning. That was due to inability to obtain the staffing levels that we needed. And as we talk about, for example, we have had a vacant bus driver position for at least 2 years since I've been here, and we now have 3 bus driver positions vacant. We had 2 part-time ones and a full-time one. So we continue to try to fill these positions, and if we were meeting our needs, we would not have this surplus or additional available funds out there. So that's a very good point to make, because if we were operating the way we planned and able to attract the staffing that we really need, then we would not have these available funds. And also the additional COVID funding with all the federal dollars and the Town Cares Act as well assisted us last year.
And the next piece of that, which you talked about, the areas where we have that we need that we weren't able to fill, we're also going to have to develop a good narrative on that, because I also worry then there's going to be this idea, well, you say you need it, but you didn't have it, and we saved that money and we got through the year. I mean, we all know, at this table that we have principals substituting math class, and doing lunch, like, so we are getting through it by gigantic team effort, because we are a team effort community, but it's not sustainable.
No, absolutely not sustainable. And that's a good point. I mean, myself, I have been in a kindergarten classroom about 4 times this year so far. So I am probably your highest paid kindergarten parent, not the best use of the curriculum dollars. But yes, we absolutely, we're making do without them. It's not ideal by any means, and it's not the most cost-effective manner in which we're addressing our needs. So we really do need those positions, but absolutely.
And if Michelle winds up covering my son's kindergarten class, we risk losing Michelle. So
we won't go there.
I'm sure it's the best part of her day.
I do enjoy it because it's a break, and I actually get to see what's going on in the classroom. So it helps me actually get a better understanding of what I do, why I do, why I do what I do here. So it's actually a very good thing. But yes, on to.
Can I ask one quick question?
Absolutely.
Just to kind of, and correct me if I'm remembering wrong. So the math curriculum, did we end up using the ESSER funds for that? I thought that was how we had discussed it. So we were able to cover that in a different way than which we had sort of initially said at the budget season that we were going to. This was through these, these funds that didn't get extended on substitutes and that type of thing.
Correct. Actually, we were anticipating having to use the SR3 funds for the math curriculum. So, and that's actually a great thing that we did not have to do that. So, because we have spent, onto my next point, we have spent most of our COVID funding to date, and really SR3 is our last piece of that COVID funding that's available to us right now.
Thanks.
So yes, so onto the COVID funding. This is actually the report you have seen previously over the summer. Not much had changed between the end of June and when I presented this a few weeks ago to the finance subcommittee of the school committee. Basically at that time, we were looking at just under $1 million that was unreserved, and most of that being in the form of the SR3 grants. Additionally, we have paid for some additional tents this fall. We did pay for the nurse that we added on to the staffing needs for this year to deal with the situation we're dealing with, and just some lingering and lagging HVAC bills that came along. So really, our uncommitted portion right now of the COVID funding is the SR3 grant. And that is in the amount of $796,000. So the survey that was sent out a little over a week and a half ago, we have 325 responses to date, which was great. And the responses covered from students to parents to administrators to staffing to even just some community members. So it was a great variety of all different groups that came along. Some people did not like some of the categories, but those categories were actually determined by the federal government, not myself. So I did get some comments, we don't have any of those groups in town. I did not make up those groupings. So, but basically, as a result, the first priority of what that group felt our ESSER funds should be spent on is learning supports. And learning supports or learning loss is a requirement of the grant, and we have to spend at least $160,000 of this grant on learning supports and learning loss, addressing learning loss. So that's great. The second priority was mental health, which was no surprise, because certainly I think everyone sees it in their personal and professional lives these days, no matter what industry you're in. Third priority was information technology. However, we are still addressing our information technology needs, and we have a great plan going. And as you heard from Stephen earlier today, we actually did get some additional funding through the federal government and their E-rate program that he's spending on hotspots and other devices. Fourth priority was operations and maintenance, which we continue to operate under the same guidelines that we were operating at the close of last school year. And our fifth priority was emergency preparedness. So at this time, we are the plan for the COVID SR3 Spending is as follows, and this is working with Nan and Dr. Bucky and the feedback of a lot of principals and administrators. And learning supports obviously was the number one priority. And we're hoping to be able to fund the full day kindergarten costs for year one with this grant. That is considered part of our learning loss and equitable access for education to all groups, because right now, technically, in dealing with charging for full day kindergarten, we do have a number of families who do not take advantage of that. And whether that is due to financial reasons or other reasons, it's not equitable access to all for this level of education. So that was actually one of the very specific points in this grant, is equitable access to all students. So we felt that this was very timely. I should also add that when you switch from a paid full day kindergarten program to a district supported, usually the first year is the toughest to deal with for financial reasons, because when the town receives Chapter 70 funding, which is a huge revenue stream for the town from the state, all of the kindergarten children are considered half-time students, regardless that they're paying and going full-time. They're considered a half-day student for our Chapter 70 formula. So our Chapter 70 formula for next year is based off our enrollment of October 1st of this year. So they're considered still half-time students. Next year, if the students go to full-day kindergarten for no fee based on this grant funding, they are then considered full-day students, and our Chapter 70 funding for FY24 will be based on those students going full-day, being a full student. So therefore, actually, the Chapter 70 funding will be increased for FY24. I do want to say that it's not a dollar for dollar. Certainly, we're not going to get an additional $425,000 worth, but it will make a substantial increase in the Chapter 70, a noticeable increase. So usually the first year is the toughest to swallow. And once you can build in those costs, it's pretty easy from there. So that is the biggest ticket item here, followed by instructional services such as tutoring, after school programs, for $61,000, elementary summer program for $46,000, credit recovery program at the high school level, $30,000. We are trying to explore options if there's something similar, not necessarily a credit recovery program, but something similar for catch-up for the middle school level. And so the total learning support would be $562,000, which is the good portion of this grant. Next section would be mental health.
Michelle, do you want to wait till the end for questions, or I've got Megan and Sarah with hands up right now?
Sure, we can absolutely.
Sarah, you had yours up first.
So where we talk about Chapter 70 money and the lag, in the following year, I just want to make sure that we have a really clear conversation with the town where we're all on the same page, because the agreement, the unwritten agreement has always been that if Chapter 70 goes down, we don't take the loss, but if Chapter 70 goes up, we don't take the gain either. Now, where this would be because of something we're doing, I want to be very clear with the town that additional Chapter 70 money that's coming in comes straight to the schools. And I just think it's a really, really important conversation to have that has not been our past practice.
Agreed, absolutely, because the direct relation or the increase in that revenue will be a direct result of us absorbing that cost, whether through our grant or through our operating budget. So absolutely, that is a point of discussion that we will need to have through this budgeting process.
Megan, David, I see that you've got your hand too.
So I agree with Sarah on that piece, but the second, just following on from that, we've talked about this a number of times of paying for recurring costs with one-time fees. So we have to be 100% sure that we can continue to cover that expense. We can continue to provide full day kindergarten once this fund goes away. So we'll have to come through our operating budget. So I just want to have a real clear picture that we're going to be able to do that. The other question I have is, these numbers that we've got against each piece, how much of that is salary versus non-salary?
Of the full day kindergarten, about 325,000 is salary and $100,000 is health insurance benefits.
Okay,
Which the health insurance benefits piece would then go to the town's budget because they absorb it for the operating costs, for the operating budget. But if it's a grant or revolving fund funded salary, then that fund must pick up the health insurance costs.
Okay, and then it's the same question for the other pieces. So for example, the credit recovery, is that 30,000 considered salary expense, or, I guess I'm just trying to understand exactly what those dollars go towards.
Yeah, it could be either or, really that hasn't been determined. The instructional services, I think I split that 50-50. Part of it would be additional supports by salary. Some of it would be consultants. Elementary summer program would be our own staff, but really they're not benefited because it's a summer position. Credit recovery is typically just a service. It's not anything that we provide. It's an outside agency that provides these credits.
Okay.
So yes.
So the town hasn't been paying the benefits of our kindergarten teachers in Paris?
Not the ones that are funded through the revolving fund.
Okay. And then part of that discussion with the town is this is what we want to provide as a level of education to our students. And we as a town need to pay for this. It's not, we are going to absorb it in our current operating budget and therefore cut something else. This is what we're going to need to make up. Out of that 425 deficit, this much of it is projected to be cherry sheets, and the rest we need to come up with from the town revenues, because we can't cut. There's nowhere left to cut in our budget. Let's just be clear. There's nowhere left to cut.
Agreed.
David?
Thank you, Michelle, for putting this together. But so for clarification, these are FY23 spending numbers, right?
Some of them would be immediate. For example, we could implement the credit recovery. I know that the high school's in discussions or has a limited credit recovery program, but that's something we could institute midway through the year. The instructional services, we could implement those at any time, but the summer program would be FY23. Yes.
Okay, but full year kindergarten, we're
next year.
Or people are paying, that would be next year, the four covers. And then, so we're budgeting this year for 23, and then 24, we would need to consider this. And I will start by saying I am a full-on proponent for full kindergarten being supported by the town. I 100% support that. I think it's long overdue. But I want to throw a little bit of caution to the wind, Sarah Fox, that we need to be a little careful about just saying, well, if Chapter 70 goes up, we need to make sure the town knows that that's our money. I'll go back to 2005 when I was a young member of the Finance Committee, and we had and Michelle, you probably remember from being on FinCom and in your previous positions, we had 2 cuts during the fiscal year of Chapter 70 funds that was, nobody saw it coming. And it's, so if you want to say that you have to think about it the other way too, for everybody on the call, that if we ever were to come to a situation where Chapter 70 funds are cut, who owns those cuts? And so I think we've come up with a cooperative process. And going back to 2005 and 2006, there was this idea that, as a town, when the cuts came down, we owned them. We owned them together. We didn't just say, oh, Chapter 70 cuts, you got to slash the school budget. And we worked together as a town to work through the cuts. And then you also have the opportunity, when Chapter 70 funds increase. But I also agree that I think this will be able to probably define, and Michelle will know better, what that Chapter 70 increase is that could be accountable to kindergarten, and how we could make sure that the schools get that revenue recognized. But we want to be careful because it can go the other way. And so if we want to say that, well, we should get every dollar of every new income, if it ever goes the other way, we have to be ready to be prepared to say that.
I understand that. I was very, very clear that this is pertaining to full day kindergarten and extra revenue that can be straight lined for
but Chapter 70 doesn't say that. Chapter 70 is $1 figure. And
I understand that, but simple math can deduce number of students, rate for the year times 0.5%. I mean,
town budgeting is never simple. So I just want to be clear. I'm in support of full day kindergarten, but you can't make a blanket statement that Chapter 70 all goes to the schools. That's just not how we do it in this town. And we need to work cooperatively.
I never made a blanket statement. I made the statement that we have an agreement that the increase in Chapter 70 funding from our half-day students becoming full-day students, which is a simple math calculation, as Michelle can concur.
Well, in all I'm saying, Sarah, is in FY24, who knows? Chapter 70 funds could get reduced. And then there could be an increase in Chapter 70 funds. So if we have reduced Chapter 70 and increased because full day kindergarten, it's not as simple as just doing the math. It's not simple math. That's all I'm saying. And I recognize and I support full day kindergarten. And I think this is an excellent opportunity with the ESSER funds to make this transition, to allow parents and students to come to full day kindergarten and for us to fund it. And I'll be there every step of the way, but I don't want to paint a simple picture. It's a complex web that I know Michelle understands and will help us through as we go through this process, and I support it. That's all I want to say.
And I think it's always good when we have a heads up on stuff like this when we are using the one-time funds to do this longer term stuff, that that it helps us know where we need to have our heads focused. And then it also, it's a public meeting, we're talking about this, and it'll be known to the town as well. And so as we continually work forward and budget subcommittees in the future, that that this is out there.
And I'll even take it one step further for purposes of discussion, but not to carry this on. So in Florida, where my sister lives, and she has 2 grandchildren, Florida is one of a few states that supports pre-K. And they have a pre-K formula where pre-K, from what I understand, is not necessarily provided by the local districts, but there's actually an amount of tuition allotment that goes to parents that send their children to pre-K. Pre-K is provided through approved private centers and not necessarily through the local schools. And so, I'll throw out a number. Let's say it's, $2,500 or $2,000. And if it costs you $3,000, but there's actually a tuition credit that goes to pre-K for parents in Florida that send their kids to pre-K. And I think that's another direction that we need. I mean, this is the first step. But I think now that we have pre-K at the new school, we have pre-K at Glover, we have a transitional K. And, I'd like to think that we could provide some support down the road for pre-K as well, and not have it be shouldered, by the parents. It's part of the entire educational process, but that's for a whole nother discussion, and I'm on board, and just open discussions. But you're right, Sarah, we need to support this. I support it. And as we move towards 24 and developing our budgets and knowing that these are one-time funds, I'm on board with it.
All right, Michelle, go ahead. Thanks.
And I do just want to, not that I want to expand that or extend that conversation rather. I do want to mention, I believe we are only one of 12 communities that charge for kindergarten at this point, for full day kindergarten. So we are definitely in the minority and it's long overdue. So this is a great opportunity. Onto mental health supports. So the SR3 grant, planning on spending about 105,000 or earmarking that for mental health supports. Part of this could be same thing, could be part salary, could be part contractual services. I did build in a small piece for retirement and benefits into there. Professional development direct to teachers for $12,000 for equitable access, because that seems to be one of the key terms in this grant. So we definitely want to make sure we are up to speed on that. Emergency preparedness for health services, 67,000. That would provide really anything we might need. Could be testing, could be salaries, could be anything we need. This grant does run through 2024. So this is not something necessarily that we have to use this year or even next year. But I do want to put that aside in case we do have the need. And then lastly is just the retirement and payroll taxes. I did build in the health insurance costs into the specific categories such as kindergarten, where they picked up most of the health insurance costs, but retirement and payroll taxes are $50,000 across the board for all of these functions.
Michelle,
Sarah?
is there money left, which is always a laughable question, lead-in, but is there money left if we choose to increase our nursing staff? I really personally think we should increase our nursing staff, given, you know, what's going on right now and the amount of contact tracing and testing and everything that needs to get done. I think is a little greater than we thought it was going to be, at least for these first few months. Once we have everybody vaccinated, hopefully that will decrease. But I'm wondering, at least in the part-time, you know, immediacy, if we need to hire an additional nurse.
If we have that need, we can certainly use this funds or a little bit of other COVID funds that we have left, not a lot. We really don't have it within the operating budget, but certainly we could make it work. And this grant should become available within a number of weeks. So we can certainly make that happen.
And that's our ARPA valid too, right?
Absolutely.
That's the term.
Yeah, that's another whole discussion, but yes, there's another whole ARPA process going on right now.
Michelle, the funds under the mental health section for the professional development, is that for professional development based on for targeting supporting students, or supporting our staff to support our students?
Yes, ideally, when Nan and I discussed it, would be to provide the training to staff so they can better support our students. Absolutely.
Great. That was part of a conversation that we had at the SAC meeting at the high school this afternoon too, of just sort of, you know, what is being seen in the buildings, you know, behavioral situations that are going on and kind of, you know, what the teachers are dealing with, you know, in reality in the classrooms, and, you know, they're really being tasked with figuring out things that, you know, people like myself have master's degrees in. And so, you know, they're really in the weeds. And so I think the more we can do to support them, you know, that they're going to be able to support our students better. So I'm glad to see that those funds are earmarked for that. I think it's really important. And I'll just put out that I would love to see that professional development target a lot of trauma-informed care and trauma-informed teaching, because I think that's really a lot of where our students are at, and trying to support them and their families through everything that's gone on.
Absolutely. And I do want to mention, and in addition to this, this year we typically have 2 special ed grants, the IDEA grant and our early childhood grant. Both of those grants actually had additional grants under the American Recovery Program. So the early childhood had an additional grant of $12,000, and the IDEA grant had an additional grant of American Recovery for $144,000. So Paula is actually working on coming up with a plan of how to best spend those. And I know a lot of those supports will also be built into those grants.
Wonderful. David?
Yeah, and I think we're sort of getting almost into a budget. I mean, granted, these are ESSER funds and one-time money funds, and we might be getting into a budget discussion of, 23 and 24, but let's talk about guidance counseling. My wife is a professional guidance counselor, and so I'm hearing about all the impacts at her school that's happening and the challenges that are being faced by students. And so I'll raise my hand and say, what am I? It's not that me, I think I need to hear from Dr. Bucky and
Did everyone lose David? Or
Yeah, that's what I was just about to ask.
as
Maybe we
we
got him back.
build our budgets every year, we need to hear from Dr. Bucky. We need to hear from Dan Bauer. We need to hear from Sean, administrators and teachers. Back? Am I back? See me?
Yeah.
I can hear everybody else.
Yep, you're back.
Can anybody?
It's choppy and frozen.
Can you hear me now?
Yes.
Hear me now?
I feel like we're a Verizon commercial.
Yeah, sorry, you're right. Can you hear me now? Verizon. But I mean, I think there's a guidance need but I'm not the one to determine that. And I think what we've all done as previous school committees and the way we've built our budgets, the superintendent has come forward through the administrative staff and told us, we need counseling, we need paras, we need nurses.
We lost you again,
Yeah,
David.
David, we're lagging again.
We need guidance counselors. So, I mean, if we want to get into what we think, but, I look at Mr. Gauthier and what's going on. Sorry. I don't know what's happening. I don't know if I'm back.
You're kind of
Am I
back. Kind of.
Anybody hear me?
I don't think you can
Okay.
hear. Okay.
I'll stop for now. I'll see if I can reboot. I'm going to log off and try and.
So
Okay,
as
sounds
far
good,
as
David.
some of the where we're talking
Try
about
and
the
reboot.
ESSER money and the learning recovery, I think that I definitely want free kindergarten tuition. I think we're way late to the game. I've been preaching that for a long time. So I don't want to do anything to jeopardize that, but at the same time, I want to make sure that learning recovery money is addressing the learning recovery of the bulk of our students. So I wonder if putting some of it into like tier 1 supports and things like that would be, or expanding our availability to do those extra supports, whether it's, through tutors and things like that, might help a bulk of students versus a smaller population. I don't think, I'm not saying the kindergarten thing is definitely important. We definitely have to do it, but I want to also make sure we're addressing the needs of all of our students because there is learning loss for everybody. I think we all know that. And then just David's question about where we're jumping ahead and talking about budgeting a little bit, which, we are. But I, for one, would like to, I know when we go put those asks out to all of our administrators, our building level, our central admin of what their ask is for next year. And then that kind of gets filed through and watered or boiled down. I would like to, for one, see that initial ask, just so we have a concept of what our building and our central admin people are saying they want, they need, before we kind of start paring that down. I would like to see that initial ask straight from them so that we can better advocate moving forward for them.
Sorry, you did get that last year through the workshops. Anything that the building principals or directors brought forward, they presented in their workshops.
All right, great, thank you. Michelle, anything that you got through that, correct?
Yes, yep.
All right,
All I
wonderful.
have, and I think the next thing is the schedules.
Yep. All right.
Thank you.
So no, thank you. That was really great information, and I know that's a lot. We appreciate those updates. Let's see. Let me find the schedules, and I will ask for a motion since I forgot to print this one. Can I get a motion to approve the identified schedules of bill totaling $197,806.94?
So moved.
Megan moved.
Second.
Emily second. Any questions? All right. Sarah Gold, yes. Sarah Fox.
Abstain.
Megan Taylor.
Yes.
Sorry, my screens keep jumping around. Emily Barron
Yes.
and David Harris.
Yes.
All right. So that is 4-0 to 1.
Yay,
Thank
you can hear me.
Yes, we can hear you again.
Maybe that's not a good thing, but.
All right, that moves us on to school committee communication and discussion items. We have first up, Sarah, you had asked for COVID mitigation protocols to be discussed a little bit tonight. We do have Joseph Griffin and Deanna McMahon with us to answer any questions that anyone might have. I think, I'll kick it off and then I'll kick it to you, Sarah. I think the test and stay /pool testing program that the district is embarking on is moving along. John, I'd asked John to give us a little bit of numbers on that. So John, do you want to do that at this point?
Sure, and I'm taking credit for Joseph Griffin's work because he's the one that compiled all of this information. But we have roughly about 50% of eligible students participating in test and stay across the district. And I have that by building, by grade level, compared to the total number of students enrolled, the number of families that have signed up for this testing. But in the aggregate right now, it's about 50%. And if people have specific questions, I'm sure Joseph and Deanna can answer those.
Thank you, Sarah.
And I'm fine getting some of this information offline if y'all don't want to go down this rabbit hole, but I'm wondering, is there a pattern where the 50% is an aggregate of the classes that we may be seeing more peaks in? Are they less enrolled or more enrolled? Like, are we seeing any type of pattern that is discernible? Or is there any pattern that, maybe we've heavy enrollment at vets and lower at coffin? And I'm literally just making this up. I don't know where we have enrollment, that we then know to focus our push in marketing, if you will, of the program in one place.
I guess my highest interest level, to kind of go off that, Sarah, is in our unvaccinated, our kids who are not able to be vaccinated. So Village, Coffin, and Village, Glover, and then the Brown. Do we have those? Are those
Sarah,
looking? Yep.
I did share with you in your email the document that I shared with Dr. Bucky that's got the numbers for each school. If you want to share it on your screen.
All right. Let me see if I can find that.
I think this is one area, just while Sarah brings that up, that, we definitely have to be creative in how we make this as easy as possible for parents so they don't have to go looking for it, because this is one of our major safety mitigation, protocols that we really does help keep everybody in school, keep our schools open, for a number of reasons. So anything we can do to make that as easy as possible for parents to sign up, so they don't have to, like I said, so they don't have to go looking for it. This came up in the Village SAC as well, and there were some good ideas that we batted around there, which we can talk about offline too.
I did ask that people that speak with their school nurse or Deanna or Joseph feel much better about the program. I think there's continues to be misinformation that it seems that parents are worried that it is a very invasive process. And so I've asked Joseph and Deanna to maybe create a screencastify or a little promotional video to just demonstrate what it is and that it is not an invasive process. Because I think people have some images of COVID testing in the initial days where it was like tickling your brain, and they don't want their children to go through that, nor would they. but it isn't an invasive process. And so maybe a little promotional video to push out in addition to making it easier with either the QR code or a backpack message that I continue to ask our leaders to push out.
I also think we need to do some teaching, because I think that a lot of it is confusion. I'm not on Facebook, but I do hear about things that are on Facebook, and the people that are out making comment have no idea what they're talking about. And that's because they haven't been educated on the topic. So Joe and I are also going to make a video that talks about the topic, and then we just need to be able to get that out to people, because I've had probably 20, 25 phone calls. And after I've spoken to everyone on the phone call to describe what the different tiers are and what they offer, they've been very pleased that they now understand it, because they're asking the source, and the source, you know, is myself or any of the nurses in the system. And that's what people need to do. They need to ask us, and we need to educate them instead of having people just talk about it without having any information that's correct.
Yeah, and I can speak, you know, I got a call from the village nurses a couple of times late last week and early this week. And you know, my son was given the Bionex, and at one point when he was in there, the pooled testing happened, and he shot right up, and immediately his ailments were fine, and got his pool test, and you know, and thankfully everything's been negative. But you know, the discussions that I've had with the nurses, and you know, they truly are sort of the boots on the ground. They're using their clinical skills. You know, this isn't you know, where it just kind of wrote, as the guidance can feel very like this and this and this, you know, this, it's just not how it's happening in reality. And so, you know, I was told last Friday, you know, if he developed any further symptoms, you know, I would need to have a PCR test in order to have him return to school on Monday. And so, you know, these conversations are absolutely happening, and the nurses, you know, are using, or are being our nurses, and doing their jobs with fidelity. And so, you know, it was, I think I was standing in John's office at one point having this kind of conversation with him about protocols and what's going on, and the things that we've been discussing. And I got a call from the nurse, and I hung up, and I was like, okay, my questions are answered, because I just had a conversation with the nurse. So, you know, I think these things are, you know, complicated, but going well, you know, probably stressful, but going well. Yes, Sarah.
I personally, from what I'm hearing in the community, it's not the swab depth or any of that. It's two things. It's people don't want to know. They just feel they're being safe, and I hear no evil, speak no evil. And mainly, they don't want to be part of a pool. They don't want their child to miss school. Like, this is the main thing, is there's concern of missing school, which the irony is, and I think this is what's going to sell this program, is people need to understand, if you want to be part of Test to Stay, you sign up for this. It is that simple. You want to test to stay, this is your way in. This is your only way in. And I think at the end of the day, that's going to get us more than any, you know, a video or anything else, as well-meaning as that may be. Like, that's going to get us people. And I think too, what we can do, we do have the option of testing kids that come in with symptoms. I mean, it is to the discretion of our clinicians. Maybe we lower our threshold for that. If we don't have the buy-in we need for, we can't do symptomatic testing unless they're signed up for test to stay. And yep. So we still lower our threshold. So, you know, if we don't have enough buy-in, and we can't say we have enough certainty that we have a safe, you know, population, I hesitate to use that phrase, but then we say, we are going to test you. If we need to call you to come get your child, we are going to test you. Or if you don't want us to do that, understandable, it's your right as a parent, you need to test to come back or quarantine, period. Like, if you have symptoms, these are your options. And I think if we start doing that, we'll get people to keep kids home, and we'll get people to sign up to test at school and test to stay, because people don't want to get in the car and drive to the testing center. Although I'm like the poster person for how easy that is. Like, I do it at least twice a week with all 6 kids, and it's quick as can be. It's super easy, folks. Like, it's not a big deal.
But what you just said, Sarah, is what we're already doing. When a child comes to the nurse's office and they have symptoms in school, and they are not consented to test and stay, we are dismissing them and telling them they need a PCR or an alternative diagnosis before they come back. Those are the protocols. We're already doing that.
But Sarah Gold just said she got a call and was told if your symptoms worsen or persist, you need a note to come back.
Because he didn't have enough symptoms at that point to actually necessitate, on that DESI sheet, it's got the bold. If you've got one of the bold or two or more. Right. And he did not have two. He did not have one of the bold, and he did not have two of the other.
It's also based on story. Like if I have a student that comes into my office with one symptom, but I know that they have a positive family member at home, then I will test them even though they have one symptom, because that story for me is a symptom. So we are following the protocol, which is basically what you're saying.
We've done over 200 of the Binex symptomatic tests in the last month at the schools as well. So the nurses are testing kids that are coming in with symptoms.
And I think, go ahead, Meg. No.
Well, I just want to highlight the fact that I think we all have the best interest of our students and our children, right? So the nurses and the nursing staff are doing a great job, and at very high additional responsibility at this point because of COVID. They're doing a great job. They're doing exactly what they're meant to do, and actually a little bit above and beyond. Well, not a little bit, definitely above and beyond that. But on the flip side, as parents, we have to kind of do our responsibility too. And if our child has symptoms, whether it's hard or not, we've got to test them. And we've got to follow, like if they've got symptoms or if they have a fever, then we've got to follow those protocols as well. It's a team effort. And we've all got a responsibility to that.
Yeah. And I think this idea of, I know my child, I know it's just this or it's just that. I think people need to be aware that unless you are testing them, you don't know. It's as simple as that. If you don't have a test, like this is not mother's intuition. This is you test your child. I mean, Deanna, as far as I know, you're not taking notes of mother's intuition, right? We test the kids, period. Like, not to be flip about this, but that's what we do. And I think that the nurses are doing everything in their capability. My question is, do they need more help? Like, do you need more staff? We didn't when we were staffing you guys, we didn't anticipate, kind of the Delta variant. No one anticipated the Delta variant. And we're dealing with that now. We're dealing with more cases with younger kids. I mean, we weren't seeing these cases a year ago when we were looking at staffing models at all. You guys need to tell us if you need more. The money is there. It's there in ESSER. It's there in ARPA. If you need more, so that we don't have staff there till 7, 8 o'clock at night, like, you need to speak up. We need to provide it. We need to advocate for them.
So John and I talked about that the other day, and so it will be a discussion, because I'm not going to say that we couldn't use help. We could use help.
Part of the issue is that CIC promised these extra staff and they are not able to provide it. And so you're normally having 3 or 4 people doing the job that thankfully I have Mary Ann, like at Village, who stepped up and is helping me get the kids down to pool test them. And Elizabeth at Glover is closing the office except for emergencies to help us get these kids tested. But it's not sustainable because they're going to have emergencies to deal with. Mary Ann can't take all that time out of her day to help me every time we're testing. And you just can't get through it by yourself. Now, the kids at Village are becoming very adept at doing it. So we're getting through them really fast. But when we start to get into the high school and the middle school, it's quite a bit more time consuming for one person. It's almost impossible.
And quite honestly, and we don't need an RN to do the pool testing. We could hire you someone who's not an RN to do that. And that would take a tremendous amount probably off of some of your staff. So we need to do whatever you guys need to do to be able to function at your maximum, capacity or whatever.
And the other issue is that if I get pulled for another school for field trips or, a nurse is out, then the testing has to stop. If a nurse is required at Glover or required at the high school or wherever, I just won't be able to go test.
That's why it would be useful if we could at least get an LPN, because an LPN could work in a building with another BSN, and I can shift people around. We're all capable of working at each of the buildings, so I can shift things, because I don't want to see this testing program be stunted because we have not enough nurses to cover position.
In the last 2 weeks, we've pool tested over 600 kids, and we've only had 3 positives in all of those 3 positive pools in all those tests that we've done.
So just a question, and I don't, again, we can kind of follow up offline, but just in rewatching some of those DESE webinars on the testing protocol, because, what else am I going to do late at night? This has come up, the shortage of CIC staffing and support. And one of the things that was mentioned there was that if we do take on additional staff to kind of fill that shortage, they can actually subcontract through, I don't know if it's CIC or DESE, I think it's through CIC to help cover that cost. Right. So it might just be something worth following up on.
In the webinar, they said that you could apply for additional FEMA funds.
Yes, that as well. Yep. That's probably, the reimbursement process is probably a little bit slower there, but yes. Yep. Another option for sure.
So since nursing staff is a school committee hire, I would say that we give whatever approvals, Michelle can let us know what we need to give. We give whatever approvals we need for that additional position to be posted. And we get this ball rolling, because, anybody who's watching the dashboard, probably not too many people as psychotically as I do, fair enough. But those numbers are climbing at an alarming level. And it's not because our nursing staff is playing Jenga. It's, they're working hard, but we can help them.
Emily, you've had your hand up.
That's okay. My comment goes back a little bit because I didn't get called on. I'm just kidding. So I called DESE today to clarify a lot of the confusion that's been happening. And I just want to say that I talked to someone in the commissioner's office, and she clarified that what we are doing is exactly right according to the protocols. So I just wanted to clarify that with everybody. And her big thing that she actually wanted me to quote was that we have this testing, the protocols, the in school, the way that we're treating this in school to keep everybody safe, but it doesn't count for out of school. And they are counting on people doing the best they can to keep people safe. So that was her big push, that we need to, when we know school's safe and we're doing everything we can to keep us in school, but outside of school, everyone needs to step up and do the right thing, which is, if your kid is sick, call the nurse, get a test. And that's so important so that we can keep our kids in school every day. So I just wanted to reiterate that how important outside behavior is for everybody. And we all need to step it up, I think.
So I talked to DESE today too. I talked to the senior advisor to the commissioner in regards to COVID and COVID mitigation. And she was the one that said, it's really the clinical judgment, and they can choose if they want to, if there's an outbreak, if you want to increase your standards or whatever. But what's troubling to me is right away she goes, I didn't even need to tell her about what was going on in some of our schools. And she used the phrase, "Are you talking about the village situation?" It is troubling to me that there is a big enough situation that DESE immediately knew the name of the school and referred to it without me even saying that. So that is troubling, and we need to do what we need to do. And I think giving Deanna the additional staffing to do with whatever she sees fit is what we need to do.
Just to let you know, the reason why that was known was because when something was happening like that, I had to collaborate with the Board of Health, and we had to collaborate with DESE on the situation. So that's why they were able to say that to you, because that was discussed yesterday. So it was
She
fresh.
also said we could request the mobile testing unit that was available last year, and we would decide. if we could, if they would send that out to Marblehead or not. And then the state pays for that versus like the town and ARPA funds paying for that testing.
Correct. But in the, when collaborating with the Board of Health, they didn't feel like it was necessary because they speak to other school systems nearby that have utilized some of the things. And because we were already doing the 90 pool tests at the building, we were already covering it.
David, go ahead.
Can we just take a time out? I mean, we have Deanna, who's a professional here. We have Joseph, who's a professional. And we have Dr. Bucky, who's the superintendent. At my day job, they can't even keep up with the testing. They can't even keep up with what's called close constant contact. We're trying to figure out when employees can come back to work, when they've tested negative. I mean, this is an extremely challenging process. And as a school committee member, I'm not going to make recommendations that we need to have mobile units here. I'm not going to be making recommendations. I'm not going to be calling DESE. I think I am going to rely on Deanna, Joseph, recommendations of the professional staff that we have in Dr. Bucky to make decisions about what's best for this district. Can we please do that? And Dr. Bucky will speak, I guess, at some point. If there's a recommendation here that we need additional staffing, I'm sure this committee will deliberate on it and make a decision. But I am not the professional when it comes to COVID testing and how and when and where we need to do all this. This is really, I think we're getting off track. And I have full trust in the professionals that have been managing this, just like I do at my day job. And it's quite honestly, it's overwhelming. But I also want to go back to a comment that was made, something about it's alarming and everything else. It depends on your opinion. New York Times said the variant is down by over a third, and it's starting to go the other way. At my place of work, they are now testing instead of 3 times a week, 2 times a week, and there were 2 positive cases out of 7,764 students. So it depends on which picture you're looking at, but I don't think we should be getting into a debate here as a committee about what we think. I want to hear from the professionals. And so far, what I'm hearing is we might be understaffed. We might need some additional help here to accomplish what we want to, what is in the best interest of the district. But I certainly don't want to micromanage what Deanna, Joseph, and the staff and Dr. Bucky are doing. And I just want to support they're in this full time to win it. And I want to hear, whatever the needs are, we can deliberate those and try and come up with something to support that.
Yeah, and I don't believe that we need any kind of motion or anything to be able to post for a nursing position. I think the only piece that the school committee plays in that is approving the hire. So if that's, in
the budget, I adding it to the budget, but this all, we're talking about policy here. And as you know, that is one of our main jobs. So we do need to do our job. And I am listening to the professionals. It's not as if Deanna said, I don't need more staff. And I said, aha, Deanna, you're wrong. You do. Like Deanna told us she needs more staff. We can choose to say she believes she said it, or we can say she didn't say it, but she needs more staff. She's shaking her head. Yes. This is not, we're not debating facts here. The fact is Deanna is telling us she needs more staff. We're going to listen to her, or we're going to disregard her professional opinion.
But additionally, Sarah, you're adding commentary about your thoughts about COVID, and it's exceedingly dramatic, and that people knew about the village school and that there's some explosion.
Maybe you're not aware.
I think we need to kind of reel it in here a little bit, Sarah. We need
Unless you have a mouse in your pocket, I would not use the word we. The term outbreak.
What was that, Sarah? A mouth in my pocket?
It's a phrase my mother used to say when you say
all right,
we.
So I think we're getting a little bit off topic.
You're right. You're right.
And I think we are all in agreement that that we could, that Dr. Bucky is going to work with Deanna and Joseph offline to determine what the needs are and how we can best support them. And if there are budgetary implications, we will absolutely deal with that. And that, I think it's evident by the support of everyone on this call that if an additional nurse or two or however many is determined to be needed, that we will work to support that. That is a top priority. So.
The other piece I wanted to include in part of this, I'd said in my email was I would like us to adopt a policy of classroom level notifications for COVID, the way we do for the way we have done in the past for flu, strep, and things of the like. Legal has consulted and has said we absolutely have the legal ability to do this. It's up if we choose not to do it, it's a district decision. It's not founded in any legal reason. So I would like us, I guess I'd make a motion to adopt a policy to make classroom level notifications of COVID cases in your child's class.
Can I just comment on that?
Yes.
So
hold on. We have a motion on the floor. So let me just, if there's a second on that, before I have you comment, Deanna.
Before I second it, I just, and I said this in our retreat, this isn't the type of thing that I think we should be making decisions on the fly. So I would like us to follow some process here, as we talked about in our retreat. And if this is something, Sarah, that you want the policy subcommittee to look into, then I think we should follow that process. So I'm not willing to vote on that right now because we haven't even discussed it, and I'm not interested. I don't think it's in the district's best interest to make decisions like this on the fly. I think we should send it to the policy committee, let them come to us with a recommendation after they've spoken to our nurse and our superintendent and whoever else they need to, and then we can go from there.
So I understand your point of view, and you made that, and I like to I will respect that on things that aren't as time sensitive, where this is more time sensitive. There's a motion on the table, so we have to at least, if it doesn't get a second, then it's the will of the committee to not support this motion. But if it gets a second, we do procedurally need to vote on it. So I'm happy to, if however this shakes out, to then say we'll have policy meet with legal to work on the wording. But I don't want to let this realistically go a couple weeks when I think that this is a very important mitigation factor other districts are using. So that's why I made the policy. And again, it can be the will of the committee to not support it, or we can vote on it.
And I just want to be 100% clear. I'm not saying I don't support it. What I'm saying is I don't think it's in our best interest to make policy decisions on the fly.
Okay. We don't have a second yet.
Is there a second?
Okay. So let the record show no one seconded a motion.
Yep. But if we're going to say let the record show, no one is saying that they don't support this, but I do think that we need to be thoughtful about when we are making changes and make sure that we're getting the recommendation from our superintendent and from our health experts in our district. And we also have to be very clear that we are following protocols and we are making sure that safety protocols are in place while also considering confidentiality of our students. And there is a balancing act there, which is why I think it deserves some conversation. Now, that's just my opinion.
Well, legal has been consulted on this. I only know because of my personal situation, but legal has been, and our legal team has given a determination on this, which all of our administration is aware of.
Okay, so that's information, Sarah, that you have that the rest of the committee does not. And once again, I don't think that this is the right process to go through in making decisions like this.
So much like the nurse conversation, the additional nurse conversation, I think, the committee has obviously, stated a thought. And if Dr. Bucky and Deanna and Joseph and any other nurses within the district think that would be helpful, or that is warranted, that it hasn't been up until this point, but if at any point we get to that place, that they would bring that recommendation to us, and to the policy subcommittee, and the policy subcommittee can take it up immediately. And, and again, Sarah, you are correct. We have in time sensitive COVID policies, we have brought them for a single read at only a school committee meeting. So, that too can happen. All right. I think that is it for the COVID protocol, mitigation protocols. So the next item up is the Deanna and Joseph, thank you very much. Thank you for being with us this evening, staying on with us, and providing all the information that you have, as well as thank you generally for all the work that you're doing. We appreciate it. Okay, so the school committee evaluations and goals. We had in our Dropbox, Emily had tallied things into a tally sheet that showed, without saying who, stated what. She had the tallies for everything and then the average. And then I think later in the day, it was dropped in the actual evaluation tool with the averages put in on the lines next to them. So I will just kind of open this up for conversation. I haven't looked it over in great detail, so if we want to bring this back up at our next meeting, we can do so. Maybe this informs kind of where we take our goals and come to the next meeting with some thoughts on goals for the school committee for this coming year. Megan, I know this is one of your babies, so I will let you weigh in if you would like.
I don't know that I have much to add. I mean, I looked like I've been through kind of the numbers at a high level, but I think, it is clear that there are some areas for, opportunity for improvement for sure. And I think that's a great idea, to kind of think about how we tie our goals into this, as well as into, district level goals too, to make sure that we're all in alignment. It's just, it's the same thing with every year. It's just kind of keeping it top of the conversation. So.
Does anyone else have any thoughts on the data that was the feedback that's given? Any surprises or anything? Yeah. So as Megan looks, I think the next step for us would be to, pull up the goals that we had for last year. And kind of we had talked about this, I believe it was back at the retreat over the summer, maybe it was at a school committee meeting during the school year, I can't remember at this point, but pull those back up and just kind of look through them. And based on the numbers here, we can, we've talked a little bit about places where we had kind of achieved either part or all of the goal there, and then parts where maybe we didn't achieve much at all, and then come to the next meeting with some ideas for additional pieces to those goals, or if we did achieve a full goal, kind of other thoughts for goals that could be given. Emily, I saw your hand up.
I think that's great. And also if we could bring up our operating protocols, because some of the questions were about how we work as a group, and it might be good to tie some of the information that we got from the evaluation to update those, because I think we were talking about with Dorothy to shorten them up, and so maybe we could use this data to update those at some point too.
Are you volunteering?
Great idea.
No. No, I'm happy to help.
I think that's a great idea.
Megan, that was your big thing.
All right, sound good to everybody? It'll give everybody, I know, again, the evaluation tool was dropped a little late in the day, so it'll give everybody the ability to kind of go back, think about their own numbers, and look at where the rest of the group came out and focus themselves on maybe some good goals. Megan? So
just to be clear, for our next meeting, are we bringing some suggested goals? Can we kind of set a date that everyone gets them into the Dropbox so we all have time to really review them before we discuss? And to answer your question, there's not a lot of surprises in, in those numbers. I think communication being one, and training another, which we talked about during some of our legal conversations too. So what opportunity? Why don't we shoot for next
just in, the consistent and continued effort to get things into the Dropbox on Monday. If we can get goals back to probably, Emily, are you going to compile, or do you want me to just?
Or Lisa, can Lisa help?
Yeah, I think it's,
I can be the compiler.
Okay. All right. So yeah, send them to either Emily or Lisa, and then they can work offline.
So are these our subcommittee goals, or our goals as
school committee goals?
Oh,
school committee goals. Yes.
So I'm
sorry
going to
about that.
Up front. I'm out of town tomorrow through next Friday, and off the grid per se, without access to things. So I'm not going to be able to turn that around in that time, but I just wanted to.
I think if you can get them in, then by Sunday, so that again, that we can have them in by Monday or Tuesday of that week. And if the rest of us are able to get them in on time, then adding one person's thoughts shouldn't be. I don't think you need to kind of formulate them into goals. I think you just need to put everybody's thoughts down and suggestions.
So just when you get them, Sarah, if you just send them to me.
All right. Anything else on that? Any updates from subcommittees and liaisons?
So for the facilities committee, I had spoken with Michelle, who has been working with Todd, but Todd's been pretty out straight with getting ready for Brown. And they had asked that we push off our meeting because there was no way that Todd would have time to look through and do. And I think we all completely understand that he's going full force to get us online at Brown until the end of October. So I talked to Emily offline, and she was completely fine with this. And I think we all understand that.
Absolutely. You guys already gave a budget update, correct? And Michelle kind of covered it. You're muted. David?
No, go ahead, Megan.
I don't have a budget update, but I do have a quick CPAC one, and I'm sure I'm going to forget something, but also the village SAC. So from a CPAC perspective, one of the things that I just wanted to highlight is I think, John, you're going to be meeting with them in early November to go through the planning for success, but focusing in on some of the themes and how they might impact our special education. I mean, not just our special education families, but there are a few that they're particularly focused on. So there will be some more information coming out about that, but I did just kind of want to plant that seed there. Also, the village SAC, you guys know, my favorite meeting of the month. That was today, and there was, it's a great group and some really good conversation and feedback from families and, parents and teachers and administration. But one thing that did come up that I did want to mention here is that there is still a need for 3 lunch pairs at Village. So if there are any parents or community members who are interested in that role, they did specifically call out that it is different than it was last year. So it is a 2-hour commitment. I think they said 10:45 to 12:45. And it's grade by grade. So kind of 4th grade goes out, then 5th grade, then 6th grade. So it's not like everyone's out there at once. There are staff members out there as well, but it just would be a great way to help support that school. So any parents or families, get in touch with, I'm guessing, John, Mandy, or Lisa, or a new HR person on that. So if we could try to support the village school there, that would be great.
And that's a paid position again, correct?
It's a question for John.
Yeah. Last year we were relying on parent volunteers because of everything with COVID, but this year it's back to, again, the more normal pace of it with the, a little bit more to it, and it is a paid position. David, did you want to weigh in on anything?
I did.
Before the building update?
Right.
I'll let you finish last with the building update.
Before we get to the building update, if you can just, in the process of this, allow me to share my screen. So the Board of Selectmen and the Finance Committee met Monday night. I think it was a really good meeting to introduce, I think 4 or 5 new FinCom members. And they had their reorganization vote. So congratulations to those members that are now chair, vice, and 2 co-chairs. And the new members And there was an overview of that was provided for the members, basically of it was almost a state of the town presentation that happens in January. So I had sent a request to Emily Belfbecker to get a copy of that presentation. And as soon as I get that, I'll share it with everybody. I thought it was pretty, and it sets the stage. Budget process and understanding, where the town is going and where the risks are and what things are unsustainable in the current environment that they're in. So I thought it was a very good presentation. The other piece for us to consider as a district, and I had all I was able to do was get a screenshot. Emily has sent it to me since, and I didn't have time to forward it to the committee, but they're looking to change the schedule of how we do budgeting, which overall, I think it's a good thing. I start doing, I work on the same academic calendar, and we start doing some budget planning in November and work in January and February. And so I think in this case, I'll leave it for other people to, say what they think, but they're looking to step up the process of starting the budget process earlier. And I think in the first pass, I'm in support of that. I think that's a good thing. I think, last year was the exception with everything that was going on, not being able to meet in person, but, thinking about all the years prior, having been involved in budgets, we can certainly take the time to be a little more thoughtful and work through it. With that come the year-over-year challenge that everybody knows is we don't hear from the House and the Senate and state funding, and it's assumptions, and we don't know until May or June, and sometimes it's never after town meeting, but I don't think that's ever going to change. So I think with that, we have made conservative assumptions based on the information that we know, but I think it will allow us, especially this year, to start thinking about our strategic planning and what the needs are of the town and what the needs are of the school district, instead of, starting to work through those things in February. And then, as we all know, we had a compressed schedule of trying to meet, every Thursday in February and March, and then it was school vacation. And, so I think it's a good process that they're trying to work through to give, to expand that schedule a little bit and be a little bit more thoughtful. Of course, a lot of this falls on Michelle's shoulders, because as we start our budget development, everybody knows it's your staffing and what are your step and lane changes and what are our contractual obligations. And then we build on it from there. So I just wanted to throw that out there. And I think that's been shared with Dr. Bucky and Michelle since the Monday meeting. So in the next month, we'll have more to report on that. And, there's going to be an effort, I think, to work through the budget process a little bit earlier than starting in, say, the end of January. And I think that's a good thing. So just wanted to update everybody on that meeting.
Thanks, David. Policy met on Tuesday, and if I had my act together, we would have had a few policies on the agenda for this evening, but stay tuned. We're just continuing to work through making edits as seem necessary, and so there'll be a few that will come up. Nothing that's earth-shattering. So we'll get to that next meeting. Megan, did you?
Well, are you done with your?
I was going to talk a smidge about the high school SAC.
Okay, sorry, go ahead.
Okay. So as I've mentioned a couple of times, the high school SAC met for the first time today. We went over just kind of some of the ground norms and everything. I too really enjoyed being on that group. And I think one of the, the interesting conversations that happened at the end, as I kind of alluded to, about staff support and everything, but just the general, there's been a few incidents lately, particularly at the high school, concerning social media and racism and homophobia. And so, kind of Dan allowed for a space to kind of have that conversation within that group that has teachers and community members and parents and students all in a room together. And we actually were able to meet in person. So that was really great too. And so, just kind of, as we work as a district to fully support every piece of who we are, and where our students are at and what's going on inside, as well as, outside the classroom, because that ends up coming in. So, I was really grateful to Dan for creating that space and allowing for that conversation to happen this afternoon. Okay, Megan, no, I'm done.
Thank you. So we talked a couple of weeks ago about all the subcommittees getting onto a regular cadence of meeting schedules and times. And so if we could, I'd really like to post that out on our website. So what Lisa did today is there is a one pager that has all our school committee meetings on there, just so it's easy to find rather than having to go through each month. So we've got that one pager out there. I'd like to add in that cadence for each of our subcommittees. So for example, the budget subcommittee will meet the second Tuesday of every month. If we can add that in for each subcommittee, it would be helpful for the community, right, to understand when those meetings are on a regular basis. Also for Lisa, because she does help us with the scheduling and the agendas for those meetings in some cases. And then also just kind of keep us accountable. So we're making sure that we do that. So if we could just follow up with Lisa and get that information to her, that would be helpful.
Yeah, so the policy, I'm not sure what we're going to do quite yet, because we had said the last or the fourth Tuesday of the month, but then I had a conflict on that date in September. So we ended up on the first Tuesday of October. So we talked about it a little bit at the end of our meeting the other day and decided to postpone picking that. In my thinking, we've got, DESE and the mask mandate piece coming up towards the end of the month. So my guess is that we'll probably end up on the fourth Tuesday, but just kind of waiting to see, as there's a few moving parts out there as to what makes the most sense, and not calling a bunch of additional meetings on top of it.
Yeah, no, I think that makes sense. I just don't want to have Lisa chase everybody. So if you could just kind of proactively give her that, it'd be helpful.
David, I think you're up.
All right, so everybody can see this, hopefully. If I do view, full screen, does that work for everybody?
Yes, it's a little bit. Oh, there we go. Yes, there you go.
So this is pretty much the final invite that's being presented to everybody, and the committee is meeting tomorrow morning, as Dr. Bucky mentioned, to finalize the script and everything that's going on, but encourage everybody to promote this, everybody to come and celebrate October 17th, 2 to 4 p.m. And so there'll be more final information, to follow on that. But I think the preceding that is the most important day that's going to come on October 13th. And if I can, let's see if this works. Everybody seeing this screen?
Yep.
I'll give credit to Chris Stevens, but in this case also Left Field, who submitted some photos. So I'll just run through a quick script of photos. So here's the library and the media center. Here's just a example of the breakout space and the extended learning areas that are built in the school. This is the Lighthouse area as you come into the main entrance. Here's the playground that we heard some people comment about off to the left that you can't see. The sod is one of the areas due to the heavy rain that we had. They're looking to finish the sod today, tomorrow, and Saturday, and if at the latest on Tuesday. But as we know, the playing field will have a temporary fence and not be utilized. But it's just a incredibly, I mean, Sarah, you were there Thursday night and a bunch of people were there. The recreational space here is just, I think even without the playing field for the next couple of months will be really well received by all the students. And there were some model classrooms. So here we are. They were set up. There's the desks, smart boards. There was a demonstration by Steve. The teachers have their little mobile cart. They have wireless keyboards so they can leave their computer on their desk and have their keyboard and books and move around the classroom. And they have a lanyard over their neck that will project their voice so they don't have to worry about kids not being able to hear them. And Steve has gone through every room and validated the technology. So this is really exciting, and the colors and the furniture and fixtures. It's just really beautiful. Here's a picture of the gym, which I like this perspective because it goes through this whole cafetorium design where you see the stage in the background and then the cafeteria on the far end, and those areas can be closed off, and the beautiful new center court logo that was designed for the Lucretia and Joseph Brown School, and everything else as that's coming together. Another picture of the cafetorium with what will be the famous fish lights and the sailboard shades along the windows, and everything coming together in the cafeteria. And I really just think the font and the graphics of this jump out at you when you're coming up. I think, as Megan said to me, when you drive up Baldwin Road and you just see it, it jumps out at you, and it just makes a real statement. This was, you can sort of see to the left here, that's where the mosaic is slowly coming together. This picture was they had started a portion of the mosaic, but they're almost halfway up the wall on the mosaic. It won't be quite finished by Wednesday, but they're, with some of the weather delays, but that's work in progress. And I think the kids will all be excited to see how that comes together. The interior hallway from upstairs to see, the lighting for everybody on the committee's been there, but for people seeing it, it's just bright and light, and makes really good use of the space. And then this is the main entryway that leads down the corridor to the cafetorium and down to the gymnasium. Once again, it's bright, it's light. The windows that lead out to the arrival area for buses and students and drop off. And this area to the left, Steve will be putting a smart board in here that will have daily activities going on in the school, and then the other areas will have various things posted for the school. So be there or be square Wednesday, 8 o'clock. It's on the 13th. It's all going to happen. The team is, they did the first move on Saturday for teachers things. There was a few hiccups there, but thanks to Todd Bloodgood and his staff for stepping in and helping out. The final move is this Saturday. As we said at the beginning, and Sarah Fox pointed out, the custodians are working overtime. They're there to support the initiatives. The teachers are there on overtime. As John said, Sean has been trying to give teachers free time during the day so they can get over and set up their classrooms. And that's where it's at. So the clock is ticking. And so I hope everybody can have a chance to be there to see all of the mayhem and excitement of opening day. There'll be some confusion and wondering where people are going to go. And there might be a smart board or two that doesn't work, but I think all the smart boards are going to work. I mean, Steve's really been there, and, they
all work.
They'll all work, Steve. Exactly. And it's just, it's amazing. So it's exciting. And so looking forward to Wednesday.
So the teachers and the staff are doing a phenomenal job about getting the kids ready for the transition. They had a little preview for students yesterday afternoon who were students that might have for whatever reason have a little bit harder time with a large transition like this. So they brought them in small groups and showed them their spaces, and it was really exciting for any of the kids that were involved in that. I got to see, my two, and it was really, really exciting for them for that. And I just know, I'm seeing a lot of at the teacher level, them little by little in each appropriate ways, getting them ready for the idea that they're leaving, where they are and going somewhere new. And I continually am impressed with our staff.
Yeah, it's really good. And I'll probably get a chance to say it again, but I'd just like to thank this opportunity also to recognize the building committee. A lot of the members of the committee have been at it for over 5 years, since 2016. Left Field was the first team that we brought on to the project, and then RDA came on following that. And after RDA, we brought on Gilbane, and I don't know what I'm going to do with all my free time. It's been a great team to work with, and the building committee aside, Katie Martin's working on some of the final details with Sarah on the outdoor organic gardens and planter boxes, and everybody's just stepping up to help where they can. And I can't say enough about Ralph Wallace, our vice chair. Ralph has been on site at least 3 days a week. The Saturdays when they've been doing work, Ralph's been there keeping an eye on the project, pointing out things, asking the appropriate questions, following up for the district. And, Ralph has he's been amazing for this project. And, there'll be other opportunities, but I just really want to thank Ralph for all that he's doing. And, just everybody involved has been, and, Tuesday, the new police chief was there with Todd going through the safety features of the entryway. And it's just an overall, it's a town effort, and it wouldn't have happened without a true Marblehead town effort. And when I was at the Judy and Jean Jacoby event, people were talking about it. Joe Kowalik from Marblehead Light and Mike Hull were there, and they supported the underground power that came up Dartmouth Road and the powering of the school. I mean, it's just been a team project. So let's enjoy the long weekend, and here it is.
See you Wednesday morning.
Yeah, it's going to be really, really exciting. And thank you, Dr. Bucky and Sean, and for being engaged in the project. It's just really super exciting.
David, I feel like you need to borrow a kid for drop off on Wednesday.
Yeah, in some way, shape, or form, right? If
tell Ryan to come home for the day.
Yeah, I want to bring some artwork for display, though. I am going to do that. That was a call out, a shout out. There's all these beautiful displays. And so since they're empty now until the kids get in there, we wanted to try and, if you've attended the school, or maybe you have a child in second or third, you have their artwork. We want to put some temporary artwork in these beautiful displays. And then the Marblehead rocks, Dr. Bucky, we haven't talked about that. The rocks are showing up at the school, right? People are painting their rocks, and that's been a great idea, and people are leaving rocks in the front of the school. So
yeah, they look great. That has been a wonderful initiative. Chris Stevens promoted it out today. I know that Jackie Belfbecker did a rock. There have been neighborhood groups that have sponsored rock painting parties. So it really is a nice effort. I'm glad that it's taken off.
It's a noticeable touch when you walk in. It looks really good.
Yeah, it's great.
All right, very exciting. As I said, we'll see everyone Wednesday morning. Any closing business or any new business? Sorry. All right. The only piece of correspondence that I wanted to highlight, John also highlighted, was the speaker for the counseling center that's going to be on the 19th. So I just think, that there's been a large outcry on this type of thing, in the counseling center stepping up and hosting these handful of events. So it should be good. So that brings us to adjournment, and I will adjourn us at 9:23. Thank you, everyone.